Hey, what's up guys, my name is American Noodle, and today I'm going to be talking about Sniper Elite 4. Now I love Sniper Elite 4, but I don't think anybody plays the game for the story. Heck, even when I played through the story with my friend, we made fun of how uninteresting we found the story to be. But when I was playing through the game again, in many ways I saw how the characters actually portray the war that is going on. You don't really ever truly see the horrific parts of the war for two reasons. One, because you're mostly a one-man army and don't often witness your friends dying right next to you. And two, because a lot of the horrific things you do see become cool because of the slow-motion X-ray shots. So instead, the game had to portray the war through the characters. And the characters are actually quite well written for the constraints of the game. The game doesn't have a lot of time to flesh out characters completely, and they shouldn't make the characters take up more time of the game. Most people don't want that. But they still have well-written characters that represent different parts and roles of the war. The mission I will be looking at mostly to show this is Loreno Dockyard. I think other missions do a nice job of showing the characters, but I think this one probably does the best job with all the characters overall. The first conversation I'll be looking at is Carl's conversation with Jack Weaver. Jack Weaver is above Carl. He speaks for OSS, the organization Carl is working for most of the game. So, the higher-ups. He assures Carl that everything is alright with the war as a whole. He tries to hide certain things about the war because Carl isn't deemed important enough to know, ignoring all the important stuff that couldn't have been done without Carl's help. He talks to Carl as if he's just a disposable weapon for the military, because to the people above Carl, that's how Carl is seen. But in the conversation, you can see that Carl knows this. He's just become almost numb to it. It doesn't surprise him. Carl has been doing this for a long time, so he would have had to have gotten used to it. Even though he's used to it, you can still tell it bothers him. In the beginning of the conversation, Carl even mocks him. Here's the thing though, Jack Weaver is important to the military, but not as important as he tries to come across. At this time, he's mostly just commanding Carl and some partisans. To the military, he really isn't that much of an asset. He's also kind of disposable. So Carl represents the numbed and aged soldier, and Weaver represents how the higher-ups see Carl. Now this of course isn't in this conversation, but there's this one line I really like near the end of the game, where Weaver offers Carl a position in OSS. And Carl says he'll think about it, but he also adds, "We've got a war to win," because Carl doesn't consider soldiers like himself to be disposable. Because to Carl, the soldiers win wars, not the leaders. The next conversation I'll be looking at is Carl's conversation with Lucio Baptiste. This conversation is a lot shorter, but I still think it's important. So in this conversation, Lucio tells Carl to kill this venal and corrupt traitor, Laterza, who has caused many Italians to die just so he could save himself. While telling Carl about this guy, he mentions Bohm, who Lucio says is the only man more venal and corrupt than Laterza. So Lucius stands for a soldier that fights because of his own nobility. It bothers him that these people can be so corrupt and so immoral. People in his own country. Since he's a partisan, he's not fighting under his country. He's fighting for an idea, a belief. In a way, he is fighting for his country in the hope that his country will be better and eventually stand for the right things. So he fights for those things. Even though, because he's a partisan, there's a good chance he will die, as partisans were often unsuccessful. He doesn't care about that though, it doesn't matter to him. He just thinks more people should have his nobility. But if they won't, he's not going to change, he will still fight. Now I'm going to be looking at Carl's conversation with Angel, the leader of the partisans. Angel reveals to Carl that her father used to lead the partisans until Bohm's people took him away. She mentions this quote from a poet. "A mighty flame follows a tiny spark." I actually really like the quote. And she tells Carl that her father was the spark, and that's why the partisans followed him. In the conversation, you can see that Angel is struggling with following in her father's footsteps, but she won't stop hoping that she can do it unless somebody else steps up, and goes on to say, hope is what carries us through. And she's right. In a war, that's all that a lot of people have. Hope. It's a powerful thing. A country, a soldier. They have to hope that it will all be okay in the end. Here's what Angel doesn't realize though. She actually is a worthy successor to her father. She doesn't think that she is, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. I actually really like this conversation. You can tell Angel thinks of Carl as a person compared to Weaver, even though she's also a leader. Another thing is that since Carl has become so numb to war, you can see he's struggling to come up with the right things to reassure her that she actually is doing a good job. At the end of the conversation, she asks Carl to get vaccines for the partisans, specifically for typhus, which has infected some partisans. She of course wants the vaccines so the partisans can keep fighting, but it seems like she mostly wants them because she genuinely cares about the partisans. So Angel kind of represents what a leader should be, someone always trying his or her best, someone who's truly hoping not the best for herself, but for her people. The last conversation I'm going to be talking about is Carl's conversation with Giancarlo. Giancarlo is sick, likely with typhus, as that's the vaccine that Angel wants Carl to get, and when Angel was talking about the sickness, she looked over at where Giancarlo was. You can see that the sickness is really beginning to take a toll on him, but he doesn't want to tell Angel how bad it actually is, because he doesn't want to distract her from her more important duties. He's determined to push through his pain to not hold the partisans and their leader back. He represents a determined soldier who doesn't know when to quit, someone who always tries to keep fighting for what he believes in. Although honestly, I think the more important part of this conversation is what he tells Carl about Angel. First off, he tells Carl that Angel actually is a worthy successor to her father. He also tells Carl that they never found her father's body, but wouldn't investigate it because he wasn't considered a strategic asset. Once again, we're back to the higher-ups considering these important people disposable. So all these characters represent different things, but at the end of the day, one thing that they all share is, to the people very high up in the military, they're all disposable. Thanks for watching the video. I really enjoyed making this, and I'm going to be doing more video essays soon, likely on video games. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe button to get more content like this. See ya!